The next page is the front cover of Nintendo Dream magazine, dated May 2001. It celebrates the release of the Game Boy Advance with a large image of Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach. The cover also highlights features on F-Zero, a new Zelda game, and Pocket Monsters Crystal version. The text mentions a special feature with an interview with Satoru Iwata. This page is a full-page advertisement for Choo Choo Rocket. On the Game Boy Advance, the ad highlights the game's puzzle action gameplay, 4-player battle mode with 1 cartridge, and a contest to win a trip to the Kennedy Space Center. The simple rules involve guiding choo-choos to your rocket while avoiding the cat, Kapu Kapu. The next page is an advertisement for Choo Choo Rocket. On the Game Boy Advance, it highlights the game's release date as March 21, 2001, with a suggested retail price of 4,800 yens. It's a puzzle action game supporting 14 players and features 4-player battles with a single cartridge. The ad also features simple gameplay instructions. Guide the choo-choos, use arrow panels, get them into your rocket, and send Kapu Kapu to your opponent's rocket. A Game Jam event is also advertised, taking place at ZEP Tokyo on April 14th and 15th, featuring new titles and presentations. It features a Sonic Team logo at the bottom. The next page advertises a Legend of Zelda 2-card set, celebrating the release of Nintendo Dream magazine. The deadline for applications is April 21, 2001, and the service is available to all applicants. It features artwork from The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages on Game Boy Color. To apply, you need to send a form and 1,500 yen in unused postage stamps. The cost covers the Zelda telecards and shipping. Be sure to fill out the form with your address, name, and phone number using a black or blue ballpoint pen. You can apply for multiple sets, but be sure to include enough postage and specify the number of sets you want. The ad also notes that any excess postage will not be returned, and the applications that are insufficient will be considered invalid. The delivery is scheduled for late May. The next page is a full-page advertisement for Oh Share Nikki Style Diary on Game Boy Color, a dress-up simulation game where you can coordinate outfits, hairstyles, and accessories. The ad shows various aspects of the game, such as choosing clothes, shoes, and hats, as well as activities like shopping, dating, and even working part-time jobs. It also features an original mirror as a special gift for a limited time. This page features a congratulatory message for the renewal of Nintendo Dream magazine from Shigeru Miyamoto. Miyamoto acknowledges the challenges faced by the magazine since its launch alongside the Nintendo 64, and appreciates the support from both the magazine and Nintendo fans. He mentions the upcoming release of the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo GameCube, and expresses his dedication to game development. He hopes to showcase exciting entertainment at the upcoming E3 event. The page also includes a drawing of Mario and Miyamoto's signature, along with photos of Miyamoto holding a pink ocarina and the Nintendo Dream magazine. The next page showcases the contents of the magazine, dated May 2001, Volume 56. It highlights key interviews with Nintendo figures like Satoru Iwata, as well as the developers behind F-Zero. The magazine also includes a hardware and software collection for Spring 2001, previews of upcoming Game Boy Advance titles, including Pokémon with 3 new monsters, Zero, Super Mario Advance, and Choo Choo Rocket. There's also coverage of new software information, including KZ no Klonoa, and Capcom's new games for the Street Fighter II Advance, Dragon Quest Monsters 2, The Legend of Zelda, Animal Forest, and Derby Stallion 64, regular, etc. Section features recurring segments, contests, and articles covering new software calendars, the Nindori Entertainment Club, Dream Drunker with Shigehisa Nakazoe, Game Software Fan Club 3, Nindori Homeroom, Games Communication, and Akihabara Price Research Team. The Game Index lists games for the N64 and Game Boy Advance, with page numbers for their coverage, including Winning Post for Game Boy Advance, Kaze no Klonoa Dreaming Empire, Game Boy Wars for Game Boy Advance, Konami Weiwei Racing Advance, J-League Pocket, Super Mario Advance, Street Fighter II Advance, Chalk Advance, Napoleon, Fire Pro Wrestling A, Pinobi, Breath of Fire, Mario Kart Advance, and more. The GBC games listed are Animaster GB, Gaia Master, and Golfland. This page is an advertisement for Nintendo Dream's new issue, offering special presents to readers. Prizes include a Nintendo Dream logo watch, 20 winners. A Nintendo Dream logo pouch for the Game Boy Advance, 200 winners. And Game Boy Advance consoles in violet, milky blue and white, 2 winners each. Game Boy Advance games are also up for grabs, with Super Mario Advance, 0 for Game Boy Advance, Kuru Kuru Kururin, and Napoleon, each having 2 winners. The blurb for Super Mario Advance states that a new system wouldn't be exciting without Mario. Kuru Kuru Kururin is described as simple but addictive, especially in 4-player mode. Napoleon challenges you to recruit troops as Napoleon himself. Nintendo Dream Magazine is offering a variety of prizes for readers, including Game Boy Advance accessories, a Game Boy Color, 64 Game Boy games, Hirokun and Rockman XC games, Street Fighter Alpha, Pokemon figurines, Rockman merchandise, and creeds. 2 people can win a Game Boy Advance communication cable, battery pack, and AC adapter. A mobile adapter GB for mobile phone connection is also up for grabs. 1 lucky winner gets a kiwi-colored Game Boy Color. Readers can enter by filling out a postcard with their desired prize number and product name by April 20, 2001, with winners announced in the May issue. The next page presents a calendar of new release soft, focusing on March and April of 2001. It highlights the release of the Game Boy Advance and its simultaneous launch with 25 games, proclaiming it as a potential savior for the gaming industry. The page spotlights the card reader for the Game Boy Advance, which allows players to read data from cards for use in games, alongside a screenshot. There is also Sonic Advance mentioned, emphasizing Sega's entry into the Nintendo market with this title, which was previously exclusive to Sega hardware. A schedule of Nintendo hardware and peripherals is also shown, including the release date and price for the Game Boy Advance and accessories on March 21st. Nintendo GameCube peripherals are listed as TBD for a release in July. The calendar includes the Game Boy Advance launch and several Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, Cross Hunter, Metaro 4, Pokemon Card GB2, and the release of Danby Dance Revolution GB Disney Mix. Other games mentioned are Hamster Club 64, Dragon Quest Monsters 2, and plus releases for Nintendo 64. The calendar also makes note of real-world events happening on certain dates. This page is a software release calendar focusing on Nintendo platforms, primarily the GameCube, Nintendo 64, and Game Boy Advance. It lists upcoming games, their genres, release dates, and prices as of March 9th. For the GameCube, titles like Biohazard Zero are listed alongside Donkey Konga. Nintendo 64 has games like GQ Powerful Pro Baseball Basic Version 2001 and Animal Forest. The Game Boy Advance section is extensive, featuring launch titles such as Kuru Kuru Kururin, Pinobi, Quest of Heart, Super Mario Advance, Choo Choo Rocket, and F-Zero for Game Boy Advance. Also mentioned are later releases such as Advance GTA, All Japan GT Championship, and Napoleon. The bottom section shows Game Boy releases for March and April, including Cross Hunter, Metaro 4, Dance Dance Revolution, GB Disney Mix, Dragon Quest Monsters 2, and Hunter x Hunter. The next page reveals the first announcement of a new Pokemon game for the Game Boy Advance. It features concept art of new Pokemon, including Wailmer, Hoiruko, Maril's supposed relative Azurill, Ruriri, and Kecleon. There's a screenshot of the game running, emphasizing the widescreen format, and a table of information for Pocket Monsters Game Boy Advance version, tentative. It mentions the developer is Nintendo, and the genre is RPG. The page also mentions that the next issue will have more information, highlighting that the image of the game running is actually Pokemon Crystal reimagined in widescreen. This page unveils the method to encounter Celebi in Pokemon Crystal, using the mobile adapter GB. It details obtaining the GS Ball, which requires meeting certain criteria, and recommends consulting with Kurt, Gantetsu, if you're unsure. Once all conditions are met, Celebi appears in Ilex Forest, Ubame Forest, and is level 30. The page advises preparing for the battle and saving beforehand, as Celebi can only be encountered once. It also highlights the mobile adapter GB is necessary to encounter Celebi, and provides a number to call for more information. There is a screenshot of the player encountering a wild Celebi. A table contains information about the game including the title, developer, release date, price, genre, number of players, and a note that it supports the mobile adapter GB. The next page is an advertisement for FLZero for the Game Boy Advance. It highlights the game's speed and intensity, comparing it to the Super Famicom original. The page also showcases the game's courses in F-Zero Circuit Night series, with maps and in-game screenshots of East Tenside Snake Circuit, Beacon Port Crossroad Circuit, Cinnobaz Sympathy Circuit, Ancient Mare Symmetry Circuit, and Stark Farmguard Circuit. Finally, the page features artwork of the characters Jane B. Christie and Nye the Sweetman, along with their respective machines, the JB Crystal and Crazy Horse. This page continues with information about FLZero for the Game Boy Advance. It highlights the more difficult courses in the Bishop series, emphasizing the need for precise controls and mastering techniques. The page showcases several courses with screenshots, including Tightrope Circuit, Ice Dance Circuit, Skid Dance Circuit, and Icaros Circuit. The Truth Circuit is also mentioned as a course where players can utilize all their techniques. The page then details the one cartridge versus mix ranking mode, explaining that players can compete against each other using a single game cartridge in Silence Public Circuit. This mode limits the available machines to one type, the Kim, described as an average machine. The game also tracks mix rankings, where player stats are combined. Finally, there's a section where the developers share FLZero techniques, offering advice on how to shave off even a tenth of a second. Yamagami Hitoshi, Nintendo Development Division producer, talks about mastering cornering techniques, using the L and R buttons for smoother movement, and perfecting the blast turn. He emphasizes the importance of mastering these skills and pushing limits to improve lap times. The next page features Super Mario Advance for the Game Boy Advance, highlighting the fact that you can enjoy it many times over. It primarily focuses on the Super Mario USA, Super Mario Bros. 2 mode, where you can select from Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, or Toad to clear stages. The game encourages using each character's unique abilities and lifting/throwing enemies. Several screenshots showcase gameplay, including finding keys, each character's jump abilities, using POW blocks, defeating enemies, and stage variety. It also mentions a Yoshi challenge mode and finding Yoshi eggs. It notes you can also play Super Mario Bros. As well as Super Mario USA. The next page features a nostalgic look at the Mario Bros. Mode, encouraging players to enjoy it with friends through communication cables, allowing for battles even without multiple game cartridges. It highlights bonus games, teamwork, and slippery ice stages. The page then dives into Battle Game, emphasizing coin collecting and intense competition for up to 4 players. It mentions handicaps, using garbage cans strategically, and dodging Bowser's attacks. There's also a focus on disrupting opponents to steal their coins. Finally, there's a preview of Mario Kart Advance for the Game Boy Advance, expressing anticipation for its release and showcasing the updated character selection screen. The article notes the game's suitability for link cable play and the visually appealing courses. The game includes courses such as the beach and castles. The next page presents a detailed look at the multiplayer mode in Kuru Kuru Kururin for the Game Boy Advance. It emphasizes the excitement of battling friends using link cables, supporting up to 4 players with adjustable difficulty. The page introduces a normal match mode, ideal for players of similar skill levels, with no handicaps for a fair competition. It then delves into stage selection, offering both random and custom stage options. A key focus is on mastering rotation for victory, showcasing gameplay screenshots where players race through obstacle courses. The page also notes that players who have already finished the race can watch the progress of others, observing their struggles and enjoying the victory. For those who prefer a challenge, a handicap match is described where adjustments can be made to character attributes, such as durability. Additionally, the article hints at unconventional match variations, shortening the length of the rod or reducing health to a single heart, offering a unique experience. The page describes that if you bump into anything, it results in instant death. Finally, the article presents a menu which provides Mode Select screen with options for practice, adventure, and challenge modes. This page is an advert for Napoleon on the Game Boy Advance, described as a real-time simulation with action elements. The game puts you in the role of Napoleon, commanding troops and managing resources on the battlefield, though Napoleon himself cannot directly attack. The goal is to strategically command your units. The page highlights 3 unit types: infantry, cavalry, and artillery. The objective is to capture enemy bases, and you'll encounter boss characters along the way. The article also introduces some of Napoleon's supporting officers, including Murat, Augereau, Lens, and Devout. Each commander brings special abilities to the battlefield, so players choose wisely. This page dives into the world of Golden Sun for the Game Boy Advance, which is slated for release in May. The article focuses on the concept of alchemy. The page introduces the Jinn, spirits of the four elements that assist the protagonist Robin in his journey. Robin's world is built on the principles of alchemy and the four elements. These Jinn enhance Robin's abilities. The page shows how catching and equipping Jinn can boost his stats. The four types of Jinn are earth, fire, wind, and water. The piece delves into the power of alchemy, stating that those who master it can achieve anything. It also cautions that, if misused, alchemy could lead to global destruction. Some of the areas the game touches are danger and the basics of alchemy, its power and how it dictates the world, and how you can read people's hearts and emotions in this world. The article touches on energy, focusing on how it can reveal hidden secrets of others. This is accomplished through read, which allows one to understand another's hidden thoughts. This can progress the story. The next page features Power Pro Kun Pocket 3 for the Game Boy Advance, highlighting its minigames. It introduces 4 different minigames, with the promise of secret Urawaza games too. The minigames include Go Go Run Run, where you need to escape the monster; Choo Choo Big Rat, where you defeat the rats; Waku Waku Zombie Game, where you defeat zombies; and Dokiri Spoon Mage Mage, where you quickly bend a spoon by pressing the specified buttons. It also mentions that players can upgrade their characters by completing these Urawaza games, increasing their abilities. The page shows in-game screenshots of the minigames, plus the character roster, which features characters like Power Pro Kun, Dog, Coach, Domio, and more. This page is an advertisement for Silent Hill on the Game Boy Advance. It states this version is a play novel. Quote, it showcases screenshots from the game's story and decision-making process, where the player's choices impact the narrative. The plot summary mentions Harry searching for his missing daughter Cheryl in the mist-shrouded Silent Hill. The page highlights gameplay features like manipulating electrical panels and encountering characters such as Sybil Bennett and a doctor. It mentions the collection of digital trading cards as a reward for completing the game. Some of the creatures encountered in the game are shown, and it asks if you have the skill to defeat them. The next page showcases Meine Liebe, a beautiful boy seduction simulation game coming to the Game Boy Advance from Konami. Character designs are by Kaori Yuki. The page teases the ability to go on double dates with your friend and her boyfriend using a communication cable. Several of the male characters are introduced, including Naoji, Orpheus Edvard Ludovic Hamus. The page also introduces some of the female characters, such as Augusta, Wilhelmine, and Marine. The game features a love filter, and a system where you can send love letters to the male characters. Finally, it asks which of the beautiful boys you will pick as your boyfriend, and showcases the selection of zodiac signs and blood types. This page presents Mobile Pro Baseball, Director's Spree, a baseball management simulation game for the Game Boy Advance. Konami lets you download the latest data for real players, customize your team, and aim for victory, with around 300 real-life players being available. The game includes stadiums like Green Stadium Kobe, and players can manage teams using in-game commands and strategies. The page also touches on Konami's Konami YY Racing Advance, a racing game for the GBA, recommending it as a companion purchase with the link cable. It gives tips for the Magma Castle and Cyberfield courses, highlighting the narrow bridges and magma hazards in Magma Castle. For Cyberfield, it warns of mines and suggests strategic positioning to avoid them. The next page is for J-League Pocket, a Game Boy Advance simulation game where you manage a J-League soccer club aiming to win the J1 League. It highlights grasping player data, building a strong club by strategically transferring players, and focusing on training. The page mentions the GB Advance version, with details like the release by Konami, a price of 5,800 yen, and support for one player, with a focus on strengthening players through effective training and strategic team management. Additionally, the page advertises JGTO Golfmaster, Japan Golf Tour game, for the Game Boy Advance. It emphasizes the fun and easy golf gameplay, featuring top Japanese tour players as opponents, and focusing on getting A nice shot. It introduces different modes and features multiplayer support for up to 4 players using a link cable. The page gives tips on observing the course and aiming for nice shots. This page is for Mr. Driller 2 on the Game Boy Advance. It introduces the Time Attack Driller mode, a new feature not present in the original Game Boy version. The goal is to clear stages in the shortest time possible, with 10 different stages available, each having a maximum depth of 300 meters. The page emphasizes the need for precise time management and avoiding X-blocks, which add time when broken. It also features a guide to the course, a map, complete with screenshots and tips on how to navigate the stage efficiently. Tips include grabbing time-saving items and memorizing course layouts. The page also discusses driller cards that can be collected by meeting specific conditions in the game, featuring character profiles. Characters such as Anna Hottenmeier are presented with their likes and dislikes. The game's key information is listed, including its title, developer, Namco, release date, March 21st, price, 4,800 yen, genre, hole-digging action, and player count, 12 players, along with support for the GBA link cable. The next page showcases Klonoa, Empire of Dreams for the Game Boy Advance. It highlights the storyline where dreams are forbidden in the Empire due to Emperor Julius's illness, and Klonoa sets out to defeat 4 monsters to restore dreams to the people. The page details the game's features, including 40 stages across 4 worlds, and level design offering both puzzle and action-oriented stages. It shows how to use Klonoa's wind attack and double jump to navigate environments, defeat enemies, and solve puzzles. Finding keys to unlock doors, and ultimately defeating the boss at the end of each world, are also described. The boss battles require finding and exploiting weaknesses. The character Julius proclaims, "So you're the ones who are going to dream in my empire." Klonoa's friend Hupo exclaims, "Klonoa, this is going to be tough." The next page is for Choo Choo Rocket on the Game Boy Advance. It's described as a frantic puzzle action game, easy to pick up and play with up to 4 players. The story goes that in the far future, space mice called choo-choos live in a spaceport, but space cats called kapu-kapu appear, so they have to escape in rockets. The page details several game modes, including puzzle, 4-player battle, team battle, and a stage creation mode. It explains the rules, such as placing arrow panels to guide the choo-choos into rockets and away from the kapu-kapus. In multiplayer, you try to guide the choo-choos into your own rocket. You can only place 3 panels at a time, and choo-choos turn right when they hit a wall. Touching question mark panels makes the roulette spin. It also shows how to play a 4-player battle and team battle using these mechanics. The next page is a Q&A with Sega, called Sega's Question Box, discussing the Nintendo hardware now being able to play Sega games. Question 1 discusses the appeal of Choo Choo Rocket on the GBA and what differentiates it from the Dreamcast version. The answer highlights the fun of 4-player battles, the simple controls, and the addictive puzzle mode. The GBA version features 2,500 puzzles from DC users and the ability to create stages and characters, exchange them with friends, and that 4 players can play using just 1 cartridge. Question 2 asks about Sonic the Hedgehog Advance, tentative, and Puyo Puyo, tentative. The answer states, Puyo Puyo, tentative, will come out in the summer, while Sonic the Hedgehog Advance, tentative, is scheduled for release in the fall. It then displays a screenshot of Sonic the Hedgehog Advance to celebrate 10 years of Sonic. Question 3 asks if there are any unannounced titles. The answer is a polite, "We cannot answer that at this time, please look forward to future information." This page focuses on Mega Man Battle Network. It highlights the rapid development of the internet era, where everyone has a mobile device, and Mega Man confronts the malicious viruses plaguing the network. This installment focuses on the battle system. The protagonist, Lon Hikari, and Mega Man navigate both the real and cyber worlds. Since the game is now on sale, this feature explains the battle system, which is an RPG at its core. Players talk to people and gather information, a staple of RPGs. Encountering viruses in the cyber world leads to battles where you aim to wipe them out. Before battles, players choose battle chips. These chips are special weapon data used during battles with the A button, stored in the chip folder, like a card game deck. 5 random chips are displayed, and players select what they need. Chosen chips must have the same name or code on the bottom left. In battle, players control Mega Man and their navy, maneuvering within a 3x3 area. The B button fires the weak but rapid-fire Mega Buster. The A button uses the selected battle chips. Waiting fills the gauge and lets players select more chips with L or R buttons. Defeating enemies earns data, and a high busting level can even earn enemy chips. Screenshots show the chip selection interface in battle scenes. The next page details various elements of Mega Man Battle Network. It begins by explaining the chip folder, which holds 30 chips for use in battles. During custom screen, chips are selected from this folder, so wanted chips must be added here. The data library contains information on battle chips. The network features highlight communication battles and chip trading with friends using a cable. Winning in Hanban mode allows you to take a battle chip from the losers pack. Also, trading is useful for collecting all battle chips. Next section talks about Rockman's status, which you can see on the status screen. With the enhancement program, Rockman can be powered up, and especially by acquiring Buster Up, which improves Rockbuster's performance. The page introduces Miyuki Kuroi and Skullman, who runs an antique shop in Dentown. She is a 16-year-old girl with an introverted personality. Her Navi, Skullman, is grotesque in appearance. A couple of screenshots show the gameplay involving Miyuki and Skullman. Lastly, the page talks about Masha and Sharkman, a fishmonger who appears in Government Street and has a good rapport with his customers. He worries about the lack of calcium in modern diets and utilizes his customized Sharkman Navy to buy and sell fish in the cyberworld. Screenshots show battles against Sharkman. This page is an announcement of 4 new Capcom titles. First up is Street Fighter II Advance, a handheld version of the classic fighting game, allowing players to use Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Cammy, T-Hawk, and Fei Long. Next is Breath of Fire, a port of the original RPG for the Game Boy Advance. The gameplay features the dragon transformation and the quest to solve the mystery of the Ryu clan, with updated graphics. Final Fight, provisional title, will be released on May 25th, which brings side-scrolling beat-em-up action to the handheld, with the goal to clean up the Mad Gear Gang. Finally, Yushin Rhapsody, an RPG, where the player takes on the role of a jockey, aiming to become number 1. This page focuses on Bomberman's story for the Game Boy Advance, an action RPG, where Bomberman meets and befriends Cherubons with special abilities that help him on his quest. You can feed Cherubons to raise them and then battle them in an arena. The page also explains how to combine 2 Cherubons at the base's Cherubon machine to create a new Cherubon with new abilities. For example, combining Pommy and Elephant creates Pommyafang. The bottom of the page details the game's 1-cartridge multiplayer mode, where up to 4 players can battle using only 1 game cartridge. The screenshots show various battle stages, including those with igloos, warp holes, and arrow panels on the floor. This page showcases Momotaro Festival, a somewhat quirky RPG for the Game Boy Advance, where Momotaro embarks on a journey. It promises minigame-style diversions that are sure to be immersive. The page includes a large map showcasing the world up to Nidataro's village. It highlights key locations like the Bat Tower, where Princess Yasha resides, and the challenge of the slippery slide. It also mentions Kintaro's village, where Momotaro encounters a certain incident, and Kachikachi village, where the village chief is in trouble. Other locations like the Hermitage of Rokaku the Hermit, Hien the Hermit, and the houses of Urashima and Bonbi. The next page focuses on the massive Hopeful City in Momotaro Festival, offering various activities like dice races across the moat, and the series' familiar fancy restaurant. The city features unique shops and facilities within its 5-story pagoda. Screenshots highlight minigames, including Jabu Jabu Race and Tako Tako Agare featuring Pepe Man, as well as Daruma Otoshi and Rock Paper Scissors 7. The page also warns about Ginji the pickpocket, disguised as a monkey, who steals important items from Momotaro. It also talks about inns, offering limited value in Momotaro Festival, except for the chance to play a pillow fight game, a special feature for guests. The reviewer jokingly mentions that inns cost 100 ryo. This page advertises Robopon 2, the sequel to the Robopon series for the Game Boy Advance. The storyline involves Yusuke, now the greatest one champion, being forced into a special tournament where fighters from across the world compete. A storm transports him back in time, leading to a new adventure featuring 185 Robopons. The game is available in two versions, Ring and Cross, emphasizing multiplayer capabilities via the GBA link cable. It also features character evolution. Several screenshots showcase gameplay, including 4 character battles and event scenes. The page introduces several Robopon characters, including Kid, Native, Dame Rona, Onawa, Onosage, Punkiki, Kikagaku, Robo-Zero, Mousestar, and the main characters Yusuke, Roll, Drive, Zero, and Prince Tail. The next page is an advertisement for Koro Q Advance and Fire Pro Wrestling Ace for the Game Boy Advance. Koro Q Advance features 5 areas with 50 unique courses for players to challenge. Players can enjoy crazy races, with detailed courses set in volcanoes and deserts, racing against 5 AI Choro Q cars. Customization is a key aspect, with over 6 billion potential combinations from 50 body types, tires, engines, and 131 item types. The game also supports communication, allowing players to share clear data and battle with up to 4 friends. Fire Pro Wrestling Ace is also featured. It boasts a mode called Audience Match, where players can choose styles like Strong Style or Showman. The game features simple controls, focusing on grappling, striking, and strategic breathing with the Estelle button. The advertisement emphasizes critical moves that can occur randomly and cause super damage. The next page focuses on Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Ruka's Journey, and Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Ill's Adventure for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. The page introduces the premise of the game, highlighting the journey of the protagonists Ruka and Ill, who embark on an adventure from the island of Malta to explore different worlds after a mishap with the Malta's naval. It describes key locations on Malta Island, including the library for monster knowledge, the storage for golden items, the fighting arena for monster battles, the item shop, the monster ranch for storing monsters, Malta's well as a gateway to other worlds, the Shrine of Wishes, and the key shop for identifying unknown keys. Screenshots showcase in-game scenes and character interactions, giving a glimpse of the gameplay experience. This page continues the exploration of Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Ruka's Journey, and Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Ill's Adventure. It encourages players to use the Oasis key obtained from Warubu to travel to a new world. This world is a vast desert, and the player is advised to head to the village of Karakara, which is surrounded by desert but thrives due to its water source. There is also the town of Asiya to the south, known for its castle and king, who might have something useful. The page also mentions the ability to befriend monsters in this world, starting with the Slime Slash. The player is encouraged to find new allies. It introduces the next world to explore, a vast ocean accessible by using the pirate key, which was also obtained from Warubu. Players are advised to head to the small fishing village of Yord, west of the cave. This world also has the towns of Polonia and Portraits, as well as 2 dungeons and a lighthouse. The player is prompted to find pirate treasures and solve the riddles in this world. Finally, the page gives monster breeding examples, showcasing the combinations to create powerful monsters, such as Dragon Kids plus Brownie to make Sword Dragon, and Hami Slime plus One-Eyed Piero to create Piero Slime. This Zelda Oracle of Seasons walkthrough covers levels 1 and 2. Level 1, Gnarled Root Dungeon, involves retrieving a sword, getting a dungeon key from the Great Deku Tree, and defeating the mid-boss Brother Gorias and boss Aquamentus using the Seed Shooter and Spin Attack. Level 2, Wing Dungeon, requires following Ula's trail to Yura, acquiring the Boomerang, Rod of Seasons, Power of Winter, and Shovel. The Snake's Remains Dungeon features tricky puzzles and a timed challenge against the Dodongo boss, who must be fed bombs and lifted with the Power Bracelet before being thrown. Please provide the text you would like me to summarize. The next page features a strategy guide for The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, on the Game Boy Color. It covers from the game start up to level 1, the Grave of Souls dungeon. The guide provides tips for navigating the game world, defeating enemies, and obtaining key items like the Power Bracelet. It also includes a strategy for defeating the level 1 boss, Aquamentus. The page moves on to level 2, the Wing dungeon, and provides tips for navigating the dungeon, including advice to use seeds on owl statues for clues. The strategy also provides tips for the boss of the dungeon, Grumbler, who can be defeated with bombs. This page continues the strategy guide for The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons on the Game Boy Color. It covers from level 3 through to level 5. Firstly, level 3 is Mikazuki Island and the Moonlit Grotto Dungeon, which involves finding the lost items and taking them back. It details how to defeat the boss Shadow Hag by deflecting the seed bullets back at the boss. Level 4 is the Symmetry Village and the Skull Dungeon. It mentions the Song of Currents is important to remember to play in some locations and to use the hookshot. It gives a strategy for defeating the boss, Paterans, which involves switching places with the hookshot and then attacking with your sword when it is vulnerable. Level 5 is the Mount Goron and the Crown Dungeon. This dungeon requires a lot of puzzle solving and the use of the hookshot and switches. You must defeat the boss, Gloomies, by throwing their projectiles back at them until they are defeated. The next page is an advertisement for the Nintendo 64 game Animal Crossing. The advertisement is promoting the game, explaining the premise, and some of the activities you can do. The page describes Animal Crossing as a game where you create your own village and live with the residents. The in-game time flows in sync with real-world time, and there are events that match the seasons. You can build and decorate your house, interact with animal villagers, go fishing, write letters, and trade items with other players. The page emphasizes the ability to create 4 save files on one game cartridge, allowing families or friends to play together in the same village. You can choose a character to play as before starting. The next page focuses on expanding the Animal Crossing experience by using 2 game cartridges, Ninten Village and Dream Village, and the controller pack to visit friends' villages. The Ninten Village and Dream Village cartridges have different maps, residents, and items. When visiting another player's village, residents might move, and players can exchange items or complete tasks for each other. The controller pack is required to travel to other villages, and the page highlights the ability to pick up items in other villages. It also mentions that homes can be upgraded with more furniture, and lucky bags can be obtained. The page concludes with a group of animal villagers, the controller pack, and a screenshot of the game running on the Nintendo 64, which is actually Golf, from the Nintendo Puzzle Collection. Finally, it advertises that the included controller pack comes with a letter from Shigeru Miyamoto. This page is a preview of GameCube Powerful Pro Yaku Basic Edition 2001 for the Nintendo 64, highlighting team data and player stats for the 2001 season. It features the Central League teams, Yomiuri Giants, Chunichi Dragons, Yokohama Baystars, Yakult Swallows, Hiroshima Toyo Carp, and Hanshin Tigers. Each team has a blurb about their prospects for the season and key players, along with projected starting lineups and pitching rotations, all presented in a style reminiscent of baseball cards. For example, the Giants are described as having a powerful lineup and strong pitching staff, while the Dragons are looking to avenge their previous season's loss, with pitcher Kawakami now added. The page emphasizes the accuracy of the data and the ability to enjoy authentic baseball gameplay. The next page continues the preview of GameCube Powerful Pro Yaku Basic Edition 2001, this time focusing on the Pacific League teams. The page showcases team data and player stats for the 2001 season. Each team is described with a blurb about their prospects and key players. For example, the Fukuoka Daiei Hawks are noted for their stable pitching and balanced roster, while the Cebu Lions are hoping for a resurgence with young players, relying less on foreign players and expecting Suzuki's return. The Nippon Ham Fighters are banking on their Big Bang offense, and the Oryx Blue Wave are trying to compensate for the loss of Ichiro with more strategic, agile baseball. The Chiba Lotte Marines are highlighted for their exciting young players, and the Osaka Kintetsu Buffaloes are anticipating a breakout year from their powerful offense. Each team shows projected lineups and pitching rotations. The next page is an advertisement for Derby Stallion 64 on the Nintendo 64. The page highlights the game's 3D graphics, improved race scenes, and automatic camera angles that emulate TV broadcasts, as well as the enjoyment of raising a racehorse and the races. It shows various race scenarios, including an angle from behind the horses and one that shows a close-up of the horses running on the track. The page also mentions the depth of the gameplay, including elements like turf vision replays, player-controlled betting, and careful study of horse condition in the paddock. The next page is about Hamster Monogatari 64, Hamster Story 64, for the Nintendo 64. The game is all about taking care of hamsters, playing with them, feeding them, cleaning their cages, and teaching them tricks. There are supposedly over 1,200 different hamster animations to see. Besides hamster care, there are fortune-telling minigames. You can also transfer your hamster to a friend's Nintendo 64 game via the controller pack to race them. The page touches on basic hamster care, like setting a weekly schedule for feeding and cleaning. Depending on how you raise your hamster, its personality will change. The article also highlights special events that can occur as you raise your hamster, like setting up hamster dates or entering them in hamster competitions. The goal is to raise a well-trained hamster and win those hamster competitions. The game also features a Hamnet and Hamcyclopedia. Your protagonist has a cell phone in the game that can be used to access Hamnet, which allows you to check various information. The Hamcyclopedia is a collection of the types of hamsters you've raised so far. Finally, the page introduces different hamster personalities and types, such as Hamuo, Megumi, Gaten, Choi, Funifuni, and Sapphire. This page is a full-page advertisement for the release of The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages Strategy Guide. It boasts an all-in-one guide for both games, promising complete coverage of all fields, dungeons, heart pieces, and ring lists. There are also ads for Donkey Kong 2001, Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver, and Pokemon Crystal version guides. Other titles listed with prices are Mario Tennis GB, Perfect Dark, Mario Party 3, and Banjo-Kazooie, The Great Adventure 2. The bottom shows the release date for the latest version of the Hiro Waza On series for spring 2001. The next page features a sheet of special Nintendo Dream stickers, Volume 56. It announces that the June issue will be released on April 21st. The stickers showcase a variety of images, including the Nintendo Dream logo in different colors and styles, various Mario sprites from what looks like the Super Mario Advance series. There are also stickers of enemies and characters from the Mario universe. At the bottom, there are stickers from the N64 game Animal Forest, Animal Crossing, along with promotional stickers for games to stick on the N64 cartridge, like Animal Forest, GameCube Powerful Pro Baseball Basic Edition 2001, and Hamster Monogatari 64. Nintendo and Mario-themed luck charms are also included, encouraging players to stick them on their cartridges and controller packs. This page is a blank yellow page. This page features the Nintendo Dream Entertainment Club section from the May 2001 issue. It's a reader submission corner with various segments. The page starts with reader questions. One reader asks about the magazine's opinion on fan-created websites dedicated to the publication. Another asks about receiving a copy of the Legend of Zelda game early, before its official release date. A third asks what color Game Boy Advance the staff purchased, and about Pokemon Center exclusive consoles. Finally, a reader inquires about the staff's ages and how to join the magazine. The Lust Cube showcases reader-submitted artwork, including fan art of characters from Tales of Fantasia. Nindori Support Club features messages and illustrations from readers expressing their love for Nintendo Dream magazine. My Favorite Game highlights readers' favorite games, including Pokemon Snap and Harvest Moon. The Maniac Great Collection corner celebrates lesser-known or niche games that readers are passionate about. Finally, there's a call for readers to submit their own theories and explanations for common Nintendo game mysteries, like why release dates are often on the 21st, or why Mario's hat is red. This page is a manga comic strip titled Dream Bunker by Shigehisa Nakawe. The comic follows a Koopa Troopa, likely Bowser Jr., or a similar character, as he navigates a desert and forest landscape. He's lost and trying to figure out where to go next after escaping the Sambo enemy encounter from the previous page. He complains about a rock in the middle of the road and wonders what a noise he hears is, soon encountering a shy guy. The next page continues. The Dream Bunker manga comic strip by Shigehisa Nakawe. In this part, a female shy guy spots a Koopa, possibly Bowser Jr., and is immediately smitten, calling him her Prince Charming. She imagines a romantic meeting. The Koopa, however, is focused on his journey, musing about needing a refreshing drink before falling down a hole into a new area. The shy guy is excited about the encounter and then is suddenly impaled by the Koopa's shell. The bottom of the page features illustration gossip and fan-submitted drawings of the Dream Drunker comic. This page continues. The Dream Bunker manga. Koopa and a shy guy are traveling when they encounter someone. The shy guy introduces herself as Juliet and is immediately smitten with Koopa, who introduces himself as Lord Koopa and his companion Joe. The shy guy gushes over Koopa's name, while a piranha plant appears to be infatuated with the shy guy. Koopa mentions he finds shy guys annoying, then asks if they know the way to the ocean, explaining that they are traveling there. The bottom of the page showcases more fan-submitted drawings and messages, including fan art inspired by the Dream Drunker comic, along with shoutouts to various artists. The next page features the Dream Bunker manga continuing the story. With the group now on their way to the ocean, a Goomba is dismayed about their travel plans with Lord Koopa, while Koopa's party finds Juliet charming. Koopa notes that the Koopa shell might be useful in their travels, and at least more helpful than the Goombas. A Bullet Bill appears, annoyed, as Koopa mentions that they're wasting time and should be searching for the ocean. Juliet kindly points out that the ocean is nearby. The strip ends with Koopa wondering about this new information. The bottom text describes the story reaching the ocean, expressing hope that Hey-Ho can be successfully taken to the pirate ship, and mentions that the story is nearing its end. The author discusses the extra effort put into drawing detailed elements, and mentions the debut of Juliet, which they found challenging. There is also a mention of continuing to practice drawing flowers for the next issue. The next page is part of the GameSoft Fun Club section from Nintendo Dream Entertainment Club. It features fan-submitted content related to various games. The page includes sections for Super Smash Bros. Fans are anticipating a new installment on the Game Boy Advance and GameCube, speculating on potential game features and requesting character inclusions. There are fan drawings of Kirby and characters, along with ideas for new moves and items, like a parasol, Star Fox. This section discusses the popularity of the series, particularly on the Nintendo 64, and mentions the anticipation for new titles on Game Boy Advance and GameCube. One fan draws a real-looking Star Fox, and another suggests more artwork of the R-Wing fighter. Pokemon. It's confirmed that Celebi can be obtained in Pokemon Crystal through the mobile adapter GB. Fans share artwork and love for Pokemon like Tyranitar, with some jokes about the characters, and talk about their favorite Pokemon and trainers. This page is part of the GameSoft Fun Club section from Nintendo Dream Entertainment Club, showcasing fan-submitted content and opinions on several Nintendo games. First up is Fire Emblem Fan Club, highlighting the upcoming PS version, with one fan noting it's a must-play for enthusiasts. Fan drawings of characters are featured. Next, the Ogre Battle Fan Club asks if there are connections between the GBA and N64 versions. With a need for more information on the series, fans share their hopes for the characters. The Mario Family Fan Club discusses Super Mario Advance on GBA, with fans enjoying the battle game aspect. A fan hopes for new characters like Princess Grape, and for more art featuring the villainous Cupper. The Zelf's Husband Kun 2001 Fan Club features fan artwork and speculation on the character chat from the game, focusing on her appearance and the overall feel of the game. They also discuss Link's outfits, considering shadow-like black clothing. This page continues the GameSoft Fun Club section, starting with the GFC Outburst Leader column. First is the Mother Revival Prayer Committee, advocating for a GBA release of Mother 1. It expresses disappointment with the cancellation of the N64 version, but is hopeful due to rumors of GBA remakes of Mother 1 and 2, wishing for a revival of Mother 3. A fan illustration and message are included. Next is the GameCube Great Expectations Committee, speculating on a summer release for the Nintendo GameCube. It mentions an upcoming announcement in May, and focuses on the character Luigi as a potential mascot. A fan drawing of Luigi is featured. This section then introduces Nintendo-related homepages, with Nintendo May and Saruchi 64 sites showcased that provide gaming MIDI files and fan artwork respectively. Finally, there's the Game Character Ranking section, inviting readers to submit their favorite characters in categories like cool, cute, and sexy. The first submissions are featured, with characters like Link and Josette being popular. The page also indicates that more submissions are coming in, and future issues will include additional features. This page is the Nintendo Hard and Soft Collection 2001 Spring from Nintendo Dream. It features a backdrop of pink plum blossoms and showcases a collection of Nintendo hardware and software expected to release in the spring. The text promotes the catalog as a comprehensive guide to upcoming titles. This page is from the Nintendo Hard and Soft Collection 2001 Spring, and it presents a historical overview of Nintendo's gaming hardware. It starts with the 1977 TV game 15, and progresses through iconic systems like the Famicom, Super Famicom, N64, and GameCube, as well as handhelds like the Game Boy, Virtual Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. The page then highlights specific consoles and games from the past. Starting with the 1977 Nintendo Hard Collection, it focuses on the Color TV game series, showcasing the Color TV Game 15, Color TV Game Racing 112, and Color TV Game Block Kuzushi, which were some of the first home consoles that could connect to TVs. These games were popular in the late 1970s, and the catalog states that if you are in your 30s you have probably played them. Next up, it showcases the 1980 Nintendo Hard Collection Game & Watch series, calling them the must-have item to be friends with other kids. Featured models include Silver, Gold, Multi, Parachute, Octopus, Popeye, Chef, Fire, and Mickey Mouse. The 1983 Nintendo Hard Collection focuses on the Famicom and its evolution to the AV Famicom, Family Basic, and the Disk System. The Famicom is called the start of it all. The AV Famicom is the most current version. The Family Basic allows programming. This page continues, the Nintendo Hard and Soft Collection 2001 Spring, focusing on Nintendo's gaming hardware from 1989 to 1996. First up is the Game Boy from 1989, described as a must-have item for elementary school students. It also showcases the Game Boy Pocket from 1996, noted for its slim design, and the Game Boy Light from 1998, which featured a backlight. The Super Famicom follows, introduced in 1990 with its 16-bit graphics and 8-button controller. The Satellaview system from 1995 allowed for broadcasted content. The Super Scope light gun from 1993 is also shown, as well as the Super Famicom Jr. from 1998, and it is stated that this is the one to buy if you can find one today. Then comes the Virtual Boy from 1995, noting its attempt at 3D graphics. It includes a list of Virtual Boy games, such as Mario's Tennis, Galactic Pinball, and Teleboxer. Other titles include Red Alarm, T&E, Virtual Golf, Virtual Pro Baseball 95, and Vertical Force. The second section of games is Jack Bros, Space Squash, Virtual Fishing, Wario Land, Space Invaders, Innsmouse no Yakata, Virtual Lab, Virtual Bowling, and SD Gundam. Finally, the Nintendo 64 from 1996 is shown with its Rumble Pack and voice recognition system. It also shows the 64DD and states it had a short life. A list of 64DD software is present, including titles like Giant Doshin I, Paint Studio, SimCity 64, and Zero X Expansion Kit. This page continues the Nintendo hardware collection, starting with the Game Boy Color from 1998. With various colors displayed and described as a must-have for commuters. There is also the Nuyel, a sewing machine attachment for the Game Boy Color. Next is the Game Boy Advance from 2001, hailed as a cutting-edge machine. The page highlights its features and encourages players to experience its new ways to play. Finally, the Nintendo GameCube, slated for a summer 2001 release, is presented as Nintendo's ultimate trump card. It shows the various color options, the 8cm optical disc media, SD memory card support, digital video cable, and network capabilities. The bottom of the page includes a genre guide with icons for Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color. It also lists genres like action, role-playing, race, sports, simulation, adventure, board/party games, puzzle, and other. The next page showcases upcoming games for Nintendo's consoles. First up is Biohazard Zero, Resident Evil Zero, for the GameCube, with Capcom's name attached. The reviewer expresses excitement for the game's visuals and system on the new hardware. Next is the Nintendo 64, celebrating its upcoming 5th anniversary. The reviewer reminisces about the console's appeal and multiplayer experiences. An icon key explains the player counts and controller pack support for the titles. The page then features several games with their release dates and prices. JICU Powerful Pro Yakyu Basic Edition 2001, Power Pros, for the Nintendo 64, slated for March 29th. Dubutsu no Mori, Animal Crossing, for the Nintendo 64, released on April 14th, and features a standard and a controller pack bundle version. Derby Stallion 64 for the Nintendo 64, scheduled for a summer release. Hamster Monogatari 64. Hamster Paradise 64 for the Nintendo 64, released on April 6th. Echo Delta for the Nintendo 64, with no set release date. Dobutsu Banchu, Animal Leader, for the Nintendo 64, also with no set release date. The reviewer notes the strategic depth of Echo Delta and the unique gameplay of Animal Leader. This page is dedicated to the Game Boy Advance and some of its upcoming titles. It starts with a large Game Boy Advance logo and an image of the console itself. Then there is a section titled 21st Century Nintendo Machine, which basically introduces the GBA and its upcoming titles. There are also icon definitions for multiplayer support, single cartridge play, and mobile adapter GB compatibility. The page then highlights several Game Boy Advance games. Castlevania Circle of the Moon is featured with a screenshot, release date, March 21st, and price. The blurb describes it as a horror action game and the newest installment in the Castlevania series, featuring the fight against the resurrected Dracula. Next is Kuru Kuru Kurin, a rotating-style action game where players navigate obstacles. Following is Super Mario Advance, which is a remake of Super Mario USA, with the original Mario Brothers included. Then there's Mr. Driller 2, a puzzle game where the objective is to dig deep. The next game is Pinobi, Winged Adventure, where you control a bee-shaped robot on a quest. Mega Man Battle Network is shown as an action game set in a network world. Klonoa, Empire of Dreams, is featured with an unannounced release date. Sonic Advance, tentative title, is also listed, with a fall release window. Finally, there's Street Fighter II Advance, tentative title, scheduled for July, and Doraemon, Midori no Wakusei Doki Doki Daikashutsu, which is an action game where you control Doraemon and Nobita. The next page features upcoming Game Boy Advance games, including remakes and new releases across various genres. Capcom's Final Fight, tentative title, is an action game, while Nintendo's Wario Land 4, tentative title, is a platformer slated for 2001. Hudson's Bomberman Story, April 27th, and Momotaro Festival, March 21st, are action and RPG titles respectively. Konami's Get Backers, Hell's Scarmuse, tentative title, is an RPG, April 26th, and Nintendo's Golden Sun, May, is another RPG. Capcom's Breath of Fire, Dragon Warrior Remake, July, and Nintendo's Magical Vacation, tentative title, RPG, are also scheduled. Media Ring's Unlimited Cruise, Zero Tours, RPG, and Hudson's Robot Pankatsu 2, Ring version, summer sequel, round out the announcements. The page also displays GBA packaging and communication cables. This page showcases several upcoming Game Boy Advance games from various genres. Dokapon Q Monster Hunter, an RPG by Asmik Ace Entertainment with a humorous art style. Racing games are heavily featured with Advanced GTA from MTO, boasting 46 real-world cars. Nintendo brings F-Zero for Game Boy Advance, with the reviewer pleasantly surprised by the portable version. Konami presents Konami YY Racing Advance, featuring popular Konami characters. Another racer is All Japan GT Championship by Kemco, simulating the real GT 300 GT 500 classes. Nintendo also has Mario Kart Advance, which is a highly anticipated title. Puzzle games include Sega's Choo Choo Rocket, known for its addictiveness and multiplayer support, and Sega's Puyo Puyo, tentative title, a popular puzzle game with more info to come. Hudson brings Hate Nasatena, a unique logic puzzle game with a stylish look. Lastly, Konami offers Play Novel, Silent Hill, an adventure game based on the popular horror series, promising a deep world and engaging scenarios. At the bottom of the page is a guide to the GBA link cable for multiplayer, showing how to connect for 2, 3, and 4-player matches. The next page advertises a selection of Nintendo Hard and Soft Collection 2001 Spring Games for the Game Boy Advance. First up is Mailed to Cute, an adventure game where you exchange picture postcards to create stories, and you can use it as a mailer. Next is Winning Post for Game Boy Advance, where you manage a stable with 150 million yen and train your horses to become winners. Then there's J-League Pocket, where you manage a J-League club to become J1 champion. Napoleon puts you in command of Napoleon in action strategy battles, designed to be accessible for beginners. Next is Monster Guardians, where you raise monsters and battle them against other trainers. Mobile Pro Baseball Director's Pick allows you to manage a baseball team, aiming for victory using Mobile Adapter GB for downloading updated data. Game Boy Wars Advance is a strategy simulation game with a new campaign mode and multiplayer. Super Black Base Advance, working title, is a fishing game. Finally, Tsutokomi by Konami is a mailer with creatures to raise. The bottom explains the two types of multiplayer, one using a link cable and the other using one cartridge for 4 players. This page showcases upcoming Game Boy Advance games from the Nintendo Hard and Soft Collection 2001 Spring. First is Tactics Ogre Gaiden, tentative title, a strategy RPG in the Ogre series. Next is Tanbi Musu Meine Liebe, a romance simulation game where you play a female student who aims to be confessed to by one of the boys. And then there's Uma Ana Daisakusen, tentative title, a horse racing simulation game where you train racehorses and bet on races. Fire Emblem Unkoku no Miko, tentative title, a new installment in the Fire Emblem series for the GBA. Matsumoto Leiji Space Hexasite X, tentative title, a strategy game featuring characters created by Leiji Matsumoto. Monster Farm Mania, where you raise monsters from creeds and battle them. Yushin Rhapsody, a horse racing game developed by Capcom, where you play as a jockey. Fire Pro Wrestling A, where you will find many charismatic organizations and wrestlers. JGTO Official Golfmaster Japan Golf Tour game, a port of the popular PS game Golfmaster. Lastly, Bakunetsu Dodgeball Fighters, a dodgeball game with simple controls. The bottom of the page has some tips for playing F-Zero on the GBA, noting that the L and R buttons can cause discomfort. There's also a small piece about connecting the GameCube and GBA, allowing you to transfer data and use the GBA as a peripheral. The next page continues, previewing upcoming Game Boy Advance titles. First up is Power Pro Kun Pocket 3, the latest in the popular Power Pro series, with a quirky story. Next is Tweety's Hootie Party, a party game featuring Looney Tunes characters, followed by Yu-Gi-Oh! Dungeon Dice Monsters, where you play a dice-based dungeon game with 92 characters, and Morita Shugi Advance, a shogi, Japanese chess, games. Then there's DGI Chariot Dejiko Communication, a game where you can interact and befriend the characters from the DGI Chariot anime. Hanasaka Jisan Gassen is a title shrouded in mystery, with more information promised in the next issue. Hello Kitty Miracle Collection, temporary name, is another title with no new information, but worth keeping an eye on for Hello Kitty fans. Below this is a list of other unreleased titles. Sansara Naga, temp, Super Mario Advance 2 and 3 temp, Chorok Advance, Pokemon Game Boy Advance version, temp, Mina to Isho temp, Metroid for Game Boy Advance temp. Finally, there's a special announcement about Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance, introducing 3 new Pokemon: Wailmer, Hoiruko, Azurill, Ruri, and Kecleon. This page spotlights the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, highlighting the enduring appeal of the handheld consoles even after the release of the Game Boy Advance. Featured games include Street Fighter Alpha, a port of the popular fighting game; Hello Kitty and Dear Daniel's Dream Adventure, a Sanria-themed adventure; Looney Tunes Collector, Martian Quest, a game featuring Bugs Bunny and the Looney Tunes Gang; Legend of Staffy, tentative title, a Nintendo-developed adventure; Hunter x Hunter, Forbidden Secret, based on the popular anime and manga; Cross Hunter, an RPG with 3 different versions. The page also details the Mobile Adapter GB, allowing players to connect their Game Boy Color to mobile phones, and outlines compatible mobile phone models and instructions on setting up the connection. The next page showcases upcoming Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles from Spring 2001. Metaro 4, Kuwagata version, and Metaro 4, Kabuto version are featured, promising collectible Metaros and library functions. Doraemon Kimi to Pet no Monogatari lets players adventure with Doraemon. Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Malta no Fushigi Nakagiiru no Buken continues the adventure, collecting keys to explore new worlds. Star Ocean, Blue Sphere, is teased, while Fushigi no Dungeon, Furai no Shiren, GB2, Sabaku no Maju, offers roguelike dungeon crawling. Also featured are from TV animation, One Piece Yume no Luffy Kaizoku Dantanju, a One Piece game, Chiki Chiki Machine Mu Race, a racing game based on the Wacky Races anime, Extreme Wheels, a BMX racing game, and Totoko Hamtaro 2, Hamchanzu de Shugu de Chu, where you gather hamchans. Finally, the page also has information regarding a mobile phone adapter for connecting with the Game Boy Color and various CDMA-compatible phones. This page features a collection of upcoming Game Boy and Game Boy Color games from spring 2001. First up is Detective Conan, Cursed Voyage, an adventure game where you solve mysteries with Conan. Then there's DX Jinsei Game, DX Life Game, a digital version of the classic board game. Gaia Master Dual Card Attackers is a card battle game ported from the PlayStation. Oshare Nikki, Fashion Diary, is a dress-up simulation game where you enjoy school life. OIDE Rascal brings the Rascal the Raccoon anime to the Game Boy. Dance Dance Revolution, GB Disney Mix, offers a Disney-themed version of the popular rhythm game. J-League Excite Stage Tactics is a soccer simulation game. Derby Stallion Makiba, Provisional, is a horse racing and breeding simulation. Finally, Game Boy Wars Pocket Tactics brings strategic warfare to the handheld. The bottom of the page provides information about the mobile adapter GB, including pricing for the Dion Mobile GB course and costs for downloading content, trading Pokemon, and accessing news in Pokemon Crystal. The page also shows the cost for Nintendo content, such as the Mystery Egg for Pokemon Crystal is free, trading Pokemon is 10 yen, and a subscription of Pokemon News is 100 yen. The next page highlights several Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles due for release around spring 2001. First is Animaster GB, a strategy game by Media Factory where teams of creatures race to the goal. Then there's Gensumaden Sayuki, Journey West from J-Wing, based on the popular manga and anime. Pokemon Card GB 2 Great Rocket Dan Appears is the sequel to the card game adaptation. DT, Rose of Genome from Media Factory, is a card game with a vast world and about 200 cards. Net to Get minigame at 100 from Konami allows you to download various minigames using the mobile adapter GB. 2 inches 1. Ganzo was Dubutsu Uranai plus Ranai Puzzle, Kari. 2 inches 1. Original, Animal Fortune Telling plus Love Puzzle, tentative. From Culture Brain combines fortune-telling with puzzle gameplay. Shin Megami Tensei Trading Card, Card Summoner from Enterbrain, is a card battle game set in the world of Shin Megami Tensei. Finally, Golfland from Nintendo is a golf game made by Camelot. The bottom section lists other titles with unconfirmed release dates, including Kikansha Thomas, Kari, Thomas the Tank Engine, tentative. Cluster, Guru Guru Nakayoshi, Grand Casino, Go! Hitchhike 2, Jibaku-kun GB Kari, Jankyusei Cosplay Paradise, Zoids Hakugen no Jukishin Liger 0, Chisana Kyojin Microman, Euphorkwe Senki 2010, and Chinese Monsters Kari. Finally, at the bottom there is information about the mobile adapter GB, with details about battle towers and stadiums at 10 and 20 yen, trading and battling Pokemon. This page is the cover for the Nintendo Hard and Soft Collection 2001 Spring, featured as a book-in-book for Nintendo Dream May issue. The cover image shows cherry blossoms in full bloom, with the title text layered over the floral scene. The next page is a reader submission page for Nindori Academy in Nintendo Dream magazine, focusing on reader opinions and experiences. The page features a section titled, Today's Opening of School, to signify the opening of a corner. There are short anecdotes and opinions from readers about various topics. Some highlights include requests for Nintendo Dream to be priced at 500 yen, complaints about a McDonald's cheeseburger missing the hamburger, and a reader wanting to be involved in creating games for Nintendo in the future. The page also includes a section for sharing embarrassing stories, like a reader who microwaved a shellfish. There are illustrations and questions related to the content. The page ends with contact information for submitting content. This page from Nintendo Dream Magazine continues the Nindori Academy section, focusing on reader submissions and opinions. It starts with a call for readers to submit their thoughts and ideas, comparing the page to a homeroom setting. There are three main sections. People with opinions, raise your hands. Argument, counter-argument, which show? And true dreams, foolish dreams, my dream. The first section features a reader's farewell to the LandNet service, expressing disappointment at its closure, but also reflecting on the positive experiences and opportunities it provided. The second section, argument, counter-argument, which show? Presents opinions for and against the name change from 64 Dream to Nintendo Dream. Some readers support the change, hoping for broader coverage of Nintendo hardware, while others prefer the original name. The upcoming theme is Tokyo Akihabara versus Osaka Nipponbashi. Which is more amazing? In various senses. The final section, True Dreams, Foolish Dreams, My Dream, shares readers' dreams. One dream involves Mario appearing before the dreamer and eating ochazuke, rice with tea, while another imagines the GameCube invading Earth. The section ends with a call for more dream submissions. The next page features reader submissions and a ranking chart. It begins with Say Something, where a reader shares a friend's concern about the name of 64 Dream changing, while another reader celebrates passing an exam. A ranking bulletin board lists games readers want alongside their advance, including Super Mario Advance, Power Pro Kun Pocket 3, Zero for Game Boy Advance, Rockman X, and Mr. Driller 2. It also lists the most requested presents for March, such as favorite N64 and Game Boy software, Game Maestro Volume 1 and 2, and a limited edition Game Boy Color. The page then moves to Things I'm a Little Worried About. These things, where readers share concerns, such as wondering what Inca Cola tastes like, and noticing the smell of vinegar near a train station. Finally, the N Nindori Information Network section discusses the possibility of Metroid going 3D. It mentions rumors of Retro Studios developing a new Metroid game for the NGC GameCube, and speculates about the series potentially becoming a first-person shooter. The article suggests 3D is inevitable for the series and references the Super NES game Super Metroid. There's also a one-point lesson by Mr. Obuchi, explaining the difference between first-person and third-person viewpoints in games, citing Perfect Dark and Mario 64 as examples. This page is titled Nindori Gakuen, featuring reader submission. The first submission, Space Message for the Game Boy Color game Chibi Alien, from a reader in Kagoshima Prefecture, describes the game as a good way to kill time. The reader recounts shaking a test tube with soot and a Chibi Alien character. The second submission, Refrain, for the Nintendo 64 title The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, comes from Saitama Prefecture. The reader writes poetically about helping a crying girl by wearing a Kyoru mask and dancing, pondering if they can bring happiness to her and everyone in the world, and repeating the events of the 3 days. The page also includes some reader impressions. Fumegu, oh, my favorite. Rock, I want to play 4 more. I'm now into Fire Emblem, Genealogy of the Holy War. Hard Hero is a bargain. Finally, a section about games readers want features requests for. Always. Advanced Sega Monster World Series. Baseball game featuring Mario characters. The next Mario Pro Wrestling, a tag team game featuring Luigi. Super Smash Bros. 2. An all-star action strategy game with Nintendo characters. Nindori Academy features the Desu Immortal, answering reader questions. The Immortal apologizes for a Super Famicom error, it's 16-bit not 8-bit, and addresses reader queries. One asks about the GameCube's high-speed port, initially misidentified, now clarified as connecting to the serial port. Another inquires about removing an object stuck under the Game Boy Color's B button, prompting a humorous warning about potential damage. A question about the Nintendo 64's 64DD port is met with a joke about connecting to Lost Souls, referencing the defunct service. The Immortal complains of working too much on weddings, and the page promotes the Desu Immortal Mark II Steradian, advertising upcoming February jobs. The Desu Immortal Festival is also briefly mentioned as a bad omen. The page concludes with manga panels and a note on the resurgence of collecting 1950s Showa-era manga. Akihabara's N64 game prices are largely stable, though Pokémon Stadium Gold and Silver has dropped to 1,980 yen. Shops are discounting older stock, potentially leading to further price drops. 64 game displays are shrinking due to a lack of new releases, making this a good time to find bargains. A list of discounted titles is included. The end of March brings clearance sales, ideal for N64 and Game Boy Advance (GBA) software. The GBA Advance Purchasing Guide advises pre-ordering from major retailers like Toys R Us and Ito-Yokado, as supply is likely to be limited and launch day likely crowded. The next survey will cover new and classic N64 and GBA titles. The next page features an Akihabara GB soft price list. It mentions that GB software prices are mostly stable, with the latest, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, selling well. Many shops are sold out of either the Seasons or Ages version, and the new Chichai Alien is also mostly sold out. The page then lists various Game Boy games with their prices, including Monster Zone, Card Hero, Command Master, all of the Oracle of Seasons and Ages games, and other titles. This page is a notice from Nindori Gakuen, asking for readers to submit postcards to various corners of the magazine. The sections include Help Me, Game Rescue Team. Readers can send in postcards about game strategy problems. They're looking for help with Ogre Battle 64 and Parappa the Rapper, Game Maker 007. This section is recruiting people to interview game developers. Questions are limited to those that can be answered by a third-party manufacturer. Nakawisan Sensei's Art Studio. Readers can send in illustrations for Mr. Nakane to check. He'll give advice on how to improve. My Village's Treasure Boasts. Readers can boast about treasures they've found. Examples include a strange flyer with Mario on it, or a Game Boy painted to look cool. First Game Stadium. This section is about slightly unusual game competitions. The first theme is Napoleon, GB Advance, and they're looking for funny comments. The page then gives a sample comment. Je t'aime maybe. Lonely Supreme Commander, and Unbelievable. The next page is a promotional feature titled Dream Interview with Satoru Iwata, then the director and general manager of corporate planning at Nintendo, being interviewed. The second part of the feature focuses on F-Zero for Game Boy Advance, showcasing Kazunobu Shimizu as the director, Hitoshi Yamagami as the producer, and Takashi Koyama as the graphic designer. The page includes imagery related to the Game Boy Advance and GameCube, creating a strong Nintendo-focused feel. This page features the first part of a dream interview with Satoru Iwata, then the director and general manager of corporate planning at Nintendo. Iwata discusses his move from HAL Laboratory to Nintendo, his initial impressions of Kyoto, and his role at Nintendo, which he jokingly describes as doing everything. He touches on the company's unique culture, balancing tradition with modernity. Iwata mentions visiting America monthly since 1999 to finalize the GameCube's design. He highlights the need for someone fluent in English and familiar with product development to connect Nintendo with its global partners. The interview touches on how HAL Laboratory's experience influences his role in aligning Nintendo and user needs. He reflects on Nintendo's approach to product development, emphasizing the need to move on from past successes. A photo of Iwata accompanies the text, and there's a side note about Kiyomizu-dera in Kyoto. The page also hints at an interview about the N64 at the time of its launch and the design of the GameCube. The next page continues the interview with Satoru Iwata. He talks about creating a game on the 64 and his programming work on Earthbound 64. Iwata humorously discusses returning to programming during a break and emphasizes that the party of Nyasu had camera angles to enjoy. Iwata says that there are many reasons game sales are dropping, but points to the speed of change and lack of time for players. He states that entertainment has to be better than before to be worth playing. He acknowledges the need for energy to play games and sympathizes with players who don't feel like playing. Iwata touches upon the idea of fun. He feels that entertainment has to be better, and that people don't want games that are the same as before. He reflects on the need for a fresh perspective and direction in gaming. He also mentions a time when Nintendo president Yamauchi talked about game decline. He explains how the shooting games were simplified, and the amount of bullets were increased, and states there was an era that was the golden era for the genre. The page includes screenshots from The Party of Nyasu, HAL Laboratories website, and a photo of Iwata. The next page continues the interview with Satoru Iwata, focusing on the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo's approach to game development. Iwata discusses how the company avoids chasing trends like increasing polygon counts, and instead focuses on creating unique experiences for dedicated fans. He emphasizes the importance of offering value to customers and ensuring games are accessible and enjoyable. Iwata also highlights that Nintendo aims to make games that players want to play, and they are very serious and dedicated to this. He mentions that the Game Boy Advance is positioned as a savior of the game industry. The page also features an image of the purple Game Boy Advance console. A screenshot of Kirby's Hurdle Race for the Game Boy is displayed, along with a note about possible motion sensor functionality, and that the developers have worked with the 8-bit hardware for over 12 years. Iwata states that it is very rare for Game Boy games to be so long-lived, and that he believes 8-bit CPU is not bad, and 32-bit is not great, and that games like Pokémon sell 50 million copies. The next page continues the interview with Satoru Iwata, who addresses the GameCube and Nintendo's software development approach. He emphasizes that Nintendo focuses on making games that are compelling enough that customers will buy the console for the software, rather than the hardware itself. Iwata explains that Nintendo prioritizes quality software and avoids simply trying to sell hardware. He mentions that the company doesn't make much profit from selling hardware alone. Nintendo aims to create games that are fun and engaging. Iwata briefly discusses the GameCube's release, and how he tells Miyamoto that he wants him to be dedicated to GameCube software development. He also mentions Nintendo's stance on third-party development, stating that Nintendo is willing to work with developers to create compelling games. Finally, Iwata notes that information about the GameCube is limited, because the software is not yet finalized. The page also features an image of Satoru Iwata, pointing towards a crossmark, and some game-related images. This page continues the interview with Satoru Iwata, who talks about Nintendo's commitment to making easy-to-develop for software. He highlights that Nintendo always pushes the boundaries of development, making last-minute changes to improve the final product. This leads to a lot of effort, but results in high-quality games, as the developers and quality control people often complain, but the end result is worth it. Iwata is confident that GameCube games will be released at a good pace, because Nintendo is prioritizing making games that are fun and easy to develop on. He also touches on the possibility of Game Boy Advance connectivity with the GameCube, mentioning that they are considering how to utilize this feature effectively, mentioning ideas such as offering Game Boy Advance software on optical discs. He talks about the design of the GameCube controller, explaining that Nintendo's drama naturally leads to a focus on controller design. He also claims they spend a lot of time and money on ensuring the controller is perfect. He claims that Nintendo fans can expect to connect with Nintendo, and they shouldn't assume Nintendo is lying if they don't share information. The page features images of the GameCube console, a screenshot from Mario 64, and a graphic illustrating the evolution of the Nintendo controller design. The article also references E3 and the potential for playable GameCube demos. The next page features Satoru Iwata discussing network games. He highlights that simply connecting online is not enough, it's about creating unique experiences. He mentions the issues of slow connection speeds and high costs, hindering true online gaming. Iwata discusses a vision where customers are charged only for the core content, rather than connection fees, with a system where network fees and software costs are all included. He answers a question about the possibility of a new Mother game. Iwata states that a Mother 3 on Nintendo 64 has been cancelled, and he is unsure about releasing it on GameCube or Game Boy Advance. He mentions that Nintendo has a Mother 3 team at Nintendo, and if the creator, Shigesato Itoi, wants to create a movie or novel instead, that's his decision. The page references the Mother 3 cancellation announcement on the almost daily Itoi News website, including screenshots of the website. It discusses Iwata's feelings about the cancellation. He is sad and apologizes to the Mother fans who wanted a new game. The page also includes an image of the Game Boy Advance and its adapter. The next page is part 2 of a dream interview, focusing on F-Zero for the Game Boy Advance. The developers discussed the challenges and creative choices in bringing the high-speed racing game to the handheld. Director Kazunobu Shimizu and producer Hitoshi Yamagami from Nintendo and graphic designer Takashi Koyama from ND Cube discuss how they co-developed the game. Shimizu mentions that the team started development in the autumn of 1999 and completed it in about a year. Yamagami reveals that F-Zero was nearly cancelled due to his uncertainty of how to create a 3D racetrack on the Game Boy Advance. Shimizu also talks about how the limitations of the Super Famicom (SNES) forced them to create the guard beam visual effect, using a circle to work with the system's limitations. He states how he wanted to make the game even though it was a sequel. Later, Shimizu explains that the Gigba's capabilities allowed them to improve the graphics, especially the movement of enemies. Yamagami also states that the GBA allowed them to increase the number of cars and course variations, with cars using strategy to give the player a competitive advantage. They hope players will be surprised by how much fun the GBA Zero is. The page concludes with a discussion of the timing of Zero's release alongside new hardware, with Shimizu expressing his satisfaction with the game's success and fan reception. This page continues the Dream interview with the F-Zero Game Boy Advance development team, including director Kazunobu Shimizu, producer Hitoshi Yamagami, and graphic designer Takashi Koyama, talking about the game. Shimizu mentions they made the races 5 laps long due to the previous laps being too short. They also removed the more alien-looking characters from the previous F-Zero games. Yamagami notes the appeal of the game's multiplayer mode with a cable to connect 2 devices. The developers discuss their approach to creating a challenging and competitive racing experience, hoping that the fast-paced gameplay and the intense competition would draw players in. They wanted players to know that playing Zero using personal monitors was an intense experience. Finally, the developers talk about who they think would like this game. Shimizu mentions fans of the SNES F-Zero, and those who felt N64 F-Zero was too difficult and will enjoy this game. The page also includes an image showing the characters from the N64 version, alongside an explanation that the characters and world are supposed to look comic book-esque. There is also a screenshot of the game's title, as well as a graphic showing different colored racers. This page is part of the Ask Nintendo Q&A section, where readers' questions are answered by Nintendo representatives. The 56th installment is themed around the upcoming Game Boy Advance launch, with a reader asking why Nintendo held a GBA announcement event. Nintendo's response mentions that the release date was approaching, and the event was meant to highlight the system's appeal to the media and communicate Nintendo's plans for the new hardware. The article mentions that the event, held on March 7th, was attended by media personnel. One of the highlights of the event was the presentation by Creatures president Tsunekazu Ishihara on a new Pokemon card e-reader device. This device reads information programmed onto Pokemon cards, aiming for a fall release. The page has an image of Birdo, the video game character, which debuted in Super Mario USA, Super Mario Bros. 2. There is also a photograph of a GBA setup with a camera and Mario figurine, which are described as roundhead dolls, costing 1,400 yen. The page mentions that familiar faces from Camelot and former Nintendo rival Sonic teams Yuji Naka attended the event. This Ask Nintendo Q and a section focuses on Game Boy Advance questions. Nintendo confirms GBA software, including Mario Kart Advance and Golden Sun, will be showcased at Tokyo Game Show, March 30th, April 1st. A decision on the next Space World event is pending, but likely late August. GBA pre-orders are strong, with Lawson closing pre-orders early. White is a popular color choice. Shipment figures are 1 million in March, 1.5 million in April/May, and 2 million plus from June, including overseas. North American release is June 11th, with Europe expected similarly. Details on Hanasaki Gassen are withheld due to unclear release schedules and potential for ideas to be copied. The page includes photos of the GBA, attendees, and Camelot's Taguchi. The next page features an Ask Nintendo Q and a focusing on the Game Boy Advance. A reader asks if the Pokemon Center version of the GB Advance is real, and the response confirms it is. However, it's noted that this is a Pokemon Center exclusive item, so inquiries should be directed there, not Nintendo. The writer visited the Pokemon Center and describes the Suicune blue color with Pikachu and Pichu silhouettes, retailing for 9,800 yen and launching March 21st. Due to limited initial production, obtaining one on launch day may be difficult. Another reader asks why GB Advanced software is expensive. The answer explains that it's due to increased room capacity and improved content, which raises development costs. While GBA software may be slightly more expensive than previous GB games, The reviewer thinks it's reasonable. A reader asks if playing the GB Advance can harm eyesight. The reply advises moderation, and mentions that the GBA uses a reflective TFT LCD, which is gentler on the eyes than a light-emitting TV monitor. There is also a question about the Animal Crossing commercials for the Nintendo 64, which are themed around living alone. The commercial features a child who wants their own room, but they're told it's too early. Finally, a reader asks if the GameCube will only come in violet. The answer clarifies that it will come in multiple colors at launch. Nintendo's Q and a Session addresses several GameCube and Game Boy Advance questions. GameCube color choices are undecided, but violet is a likely option due to its international appeal. Limited mobile adapter GB sales to specific stores are attributed to the product's newness and the need for retailers to familiarize themselves with it. GB color exclusive games use clear cartridges for easy identification, as they're not compatible with original Game Boys. Game Boy Advance launch titles include F-Zero Maximum Velocity, Kuru Kuru Kururin, Napoleon, and Super Mario Advance. The Link figurine from the Mystical Tree commercials is not for retail sale, but Nintendo might consider it if a toy company approaches them. The figurines were used to better illustrate the 2D game world, and are now stored with the Epona figurine. Nintendo's Q and a Session addressed various Zelda and Pokemon-related inquiries. A reader questioned the round ears of the Marion character, receiving the explanation that while Hycelians typically have pointed ears, generations of Marion likely led to their rounded shape. The Majora's Mask manga release date and Oracle of Seasons/Ages manga publication details were also covered. The Legend of Zelda title's justification was explained as a preference for Legend of Something titles, while Link's left-handedness was attributed to creator Shigeru Miyamoto's own-handedness. Regarding Pokemon League plans, Nintendo mentioned considering the mobile adapter GB for hosting, with a formal announcement slated for April, highlighting the potential for national tournament participation. Finally, Miyamoto's appearance on an NTV segment, initially planned for 2000, was confirmed as a brief E3 2000 appearance focused on Sega amidst the Dreamcast's production halt. A Nintendo Q and a Session addressed fan inquiries. Sales figures for the Game & Watch revealed approximately 43.4 million units sold globally, with significant European sales. Regarding employee training, Nintendo's response highlighted a week-long orientation focusing on company policies and departmental roles. Joining Nintendo requires strong communication skills, especially for international collaboration, as well as demonstrable achievements and a bit of luck. The Q&A page also encourages further questions for a future Nintendo question box. The next page is a Nintendo Dream monthly news spread featuring the Game Boy Advance product launch. The event, held at ZEP Tokyo on March 7th, was described as revolutionary and was covered by 8 news programs. The magazine dedicates 4 pages to the event, focusing on the newly revealed Card E system and impressions from key personnel. The points of interest include Nintendo's conscious effort to engage with the media, with President Iwata representing Nintendo on stage, and the introduction of innovative paper room concepts. It notes that the recent changes at Nintendo were emphasized. This is exemplified by Iwata's new role and his address. The article reflects on Nintendo's approach to entertainment and product development. There are photos of the event, attendees holding Game Boy Advances, and the ZEP Tokyo Ferris wheel. This page is a magazine spread covering Nintendo's Game Boy Advance launch event. The event featured appearances from Atsushi Asada, Satoru Iwata, and Tsunekazu Ishihara, who discussed the Game Boy Advance and future Pokemon games. Asada, the deputy director of Nintendo, talked about the company's current approach to game development, discussing consumer trends, the increasing complexity of games, and the company's confidence in the Game Boy Advance. Iwata discussed the direction of Nintendo's products and the new approaches to gameplay. He mentioned the possibilities with the Game Boy Advance, including connectivity with mobile adapters and multiplayer capabilities. Ishihara, representing Creatures Inc., spoke about the upcoming Card E and Card E-reader systems and the new Pokemon games for the Game Boy Advance. The article also details the Card E system. These cards contain data like text, images, and audio encoded in a 2D barcode format. The cards can be used independently as card games or with the Card E-reader to enhance gameplay. Finally, there is a mention of a new Metroid game for the Game Boy Advance. This page features interviews with 2 key figures who attended the Nintendo Dream event, Yuji Naka of Sonic Team, and the Takahashi brothers, Hiroyuki and Shugo, from Camelot. Naka discusses the development process of bringing Sonic to the Game Boy Advance, mentioning initial plans to release it on the original Game Boy, but eventually transitioning to the GBA. He also touches on the challenges of simultaneous software releases when the Dreamcast was being phased out, and confirms that a new announcement was planned. The Takahashi brothers discuss their involvement with Golden Sun, and how they're focusing on making it a full-powered experience on the Game Boy Advance. They also share a lighthearted exchange about their collaborative work style. A small blurb at the bottom notes the appearance of the Tonight 2 TV show crew at the event. This page features interviews with key figures from Capcom and Nintendo discussing their impressions of the event. Keiji Inafune from Capcom talks about his interest in the Card E system from Nintendo, envisioning its potential for future Mega Man games, specifically Mega Man XZ. He mentions the pleasure of seeing ideas turn into reality and the importance of communication in game development, emphasizing the need to enhance the appeal of new Mega Man titles with elements like gameplay and action. Kenichi Sugino from Nintendo shares his surprise at the scale of the event and the increased recognition of the Game Boy, noting the popularity of different Game Boy colors in Japan versus overseas. He mentions the high demand for Milky Blue in Japan and expresses his personal preference for white. He also refers to a previous Zero interview with Shimizu. The side column mentions upcoming features, including the F-Zero interview and potential future interviews with Kenichi Sugino. Another column introduces Okada and Umadu, who are responsible for GB Advance. The next page features several new product announcements and game promotions. First up is the release of Custom Robo and Custom Robo V2 music on CD. This 2-disc set contains 97 tracks from the games, and includes music from both the battle and scenario modes. Those who purchase the CD can receive a limited edition Robodice of either Ray MK2 or Javelin. Next is the announcement of a light-up magnifying glass for the Game Boy Advance, called the Light Boy Advance, tentative. It offers 1.2x magnification and features a light for playing in dark environments. Also shown are Bandai's new Pokemon and Rockman XE merchandise, including Pokemon Kids Series 2 Part 4 featuring 13 different Pokemon figures such as Sunkern, Delibird, and more. Pokemon Model 2001 featuring figures of Articuno, Zapdos, Lugia, and Moltres. Pokemon accessories are also displayed. There is also news about Hevero-Kun, a Game Boy Color RPG, with special straps being released to commemorate the game's launch. Finally, the page introduces a new trading card game based on the Fire Pro Wrestling series, called Fire Pro Wrestling Card Bout. The game features 256 different cards and can be linked with the GBA version of Fire Pro Wrestling A. This page starts with a focus on a Dragon Quest Monsters 2 commercial featuring Hiroko Su transforming into a slime monster through CG effects. It highlights the commercial's theme of monster breeding and how Su's character humorously morphs into various slime forms. The page then shifts to Game Boy Advance software, particularly titles recommended by the Mario Club, an internal Nintendo team that evaluates and approves games. The page reviews several games, including Hello Kitty and Dear Daniel's Dream Adventure, described as an action game with customizable costumes for the characters. Next, there is a review of Mr. Driller 2, a puzzle game on the Game Boy Advance that is about clearing blocks, which features the collection of endings and hidden cards. Koto Battle for the Game Boy Color is also featured, described as a role-playing game where the player will find interesting elements of wordplay. The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages for the Game Boy Color, with a focus on the field exploration and the way to travel between past and present. Oracle of Zero for Game Boy Advance, a futuristic racing game with speed, which offers multiplayer options and unlocks. The next page showcases the Nintendo Dream magazine, focusing on the release of an original Pokemon Center Game Boy Advance and pouch. The Game Boy Advance, releasing March 21st, comes in a special Suicune blue color, sparkling with a metallic blue hue, and features silhouettes of Pikachu and Pichu under the screen. 2 types of original pouches are also available to store your Game Boy Advance stylishly. The page also highlights Nintendo Power's monthly rewrite information, detailing the titles available for rewrite starting April 1st. Rockman World 5, Rockman World 4, and Hanasaku Tenshi Tenten-kun Beatbreaker. It then promotes the Nintendo mobile homepage for Mobile System GB users, providing the latest information on Mobile System GB and Pokemon Crystal. The page also introduces a Zero Time Attack contest for the Zero for Game Boy Advance game, being held from April 21st to May 31st. Finally, the page has a Pokemon Center directory, listing the addresses and contact information for the Tokyo and Osaka Pokémon Centers. This page from Nintendo Dream Magazine features a guide to The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages for the Game Boy Color. The strategy guide promises a complete walkthrough, covering everything from the opening to the final boss, with dungeon maps and puzzle solutions. Also featured is a cosplay section called Masuzu's Cosplay Plaza, highlighting cosplays of Link from The Legend of Zelda. There's also a small article about an upcoming Game Boy Color game called Jankyusei, a mahjong game developed by Elf, known for their Eroge games. A new snippet announces the end of the LandNet service for the Nintendo 64 and 64DD. The service aimed to provide new online experiences, but ultimately failed to meet expectations. The next page is all about the Pokemon card GB2 game for the Game Boy Color. There's a focus on the GR team, which seems to be a new addition in this sequel, costing 3,900 yen. The article highlights how to defeat the GR team members to reclaim clubs. Each defeated member gives the player a GR coin shard. Collect all 4 to form a GR coin. Using the GR coins, you can challenge the GR islands. There are in-game screenshots illustrating battles and the user interface. The article also features information about the evolution of bad Pokemon cards, using Hitokage, Charmander, as an example. The game also mentions that the GR gang can be challenged simply by strengthening the deck. The page also touches on some attractions in the game center, card dungeons, and slot corner, and emphasizes the chance to win new cards by playing them. Finally, there is the Lugia card given as an extra, with a HP of 100 and a powerful attack, and says it's only obtainable in GB2. It is a rare card. This page is about the DT, Rose of Genome game for the Game Boy Color, released by Media Factory. The text describes the concept of DT, microscopic machines created after a virus was discovered in Africa. These DTs can modify organisms, giving them new abilities. The page also explains the card battle system. Players build decks and engage in battles where the stats of units are compared and strategical decisions are made. The article shows how to draw and prepare your hand of cards and make use of DT cells and how you are victorious. The article also describes the DT Masters, individuals with unique abilities to control DTs, and how there are only around 100 of them known in the world. It introduces 2 characters. Takuma Sakaki, a DT master found by Dr. Awashima, and Yuka Amai, a classmate of Takuma. The next page is an advertisement for Pinobee, Quest for the Time-Traveling Bees on the Game Boy Advance. It highlights the game's action gameplay and story, where Pinobee, a bee-shaped robot, goes on an adventure to save his grandpa. The ad provides a brief overview of the first chapter, Ataka Forest, across 2 stages. It points out key features, such as how Pinobee's actions affect the story. The screenshots from the stages show gameplay elements like collecting items, defeating enemies, and changing the game world by completing certain tasks, which are logged in Pinobee's diary. The next page previews Winning Post for Game Boy Advance, a horse racing simulation game. The page explains that the goal is to train strong racehorses and win GI races. The game involves purchasing young horses at auctions, where you can buy 0 or 1-year-old horses to train. When selecting horses, the game offers advice from secretaries and trainers. But be aware that not all recommended horses are winners. The price of a young horse depends on its pedigree and potential. The page also covers horse management, which involves setting up a training schedule and deciding which races to enter. It's important to avoid overworking the horses and to give them rest when needed. You can send horses to pasture to recover their condition, but be aware that it can take time for them to regain their form. The page also gives information on retiring horses. Horses with good results can become breeding stock. Otherwise, they may become riding horses or disappear from the game entirely. You can continue racing horses up to the age of 6, even if they've been recommended for retirement. The next page is an advert for All Japan GT Championship and Tweety's High-Flying Adventure for the Game Boy Advance. All Japan GT Championship is a racing game featuring real GT races and allows the player to start in GT 300 and move up to GT 500. The game also features course editing and mobile adapter compatibility. It includes real courses like Suzuka Circuit, car customization, and single race mode. Tweety's High-Flying Adventure is a board game-style adventure where you help Tweety, who is gradually turning to stone, and you must collect 5 magical jewels. The game features a variety of mini-games and events. You collect jewels from around the world, and there are mini-games available. It also shows Tweety's condition of turning into stone with a percentage bar. There are also some screenshots of the mini-games included. The next page features 2 Game Boy Advance games, Dejiko Communication and Dokapon Q, Monster Hunter. Dejiko Communication is a communication simulation game where you play as a shop manager for a year, interacting with Dejiko and teaching her words. The game involves various events, mini-games, and character customization, including dressing up the characters and engaging in communication through a communication mode that features name card exchange. Dokapon Q, Monster Hunter, is an RPG where you play as Tap, a young adventurer exploring dungeons and collecting treasures. The game involves challenging quests, fighting monsters with a rock-paper-scissors battle system, and creating an encyclopedia of monsters and items. The page highlights the importance of assistant monsters in battles, each with unique skills to support the protagonist. This page features 4 Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles. First up is Doraemon, Midori no Wakusei Dokidoki Daikyushutsu, an action game where Doraemon and his friends are on stage 3, promising exciting gameplay. Next is Detective Conan, Noro Wareta Koro, a mystery adventure game where Conan solves a case on a luxury cruise. The events change depending on who you interact with, adding replayability. There are also keywords to find. From TV animation One Piece, Yume no Luffy Kaizoku Dan Tanju, which is an RPG adventure. You explore a white map in a One Piece story, with the plot changing based on your choices. Lastly, there's Totoko Hamtaro 2, Hamchanzu Deishugu Dechu, an adventure game where you learn Hamchat and create dances. You can learn different poses to make original dances and exchange them with friends. The next page covers 3 Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color titles. First is Neketsu Dodgeball Fighters, a dodgeball game where characters have hit points, and the team loses when the inner court is empty. Special moves can be executed by pressing the B button at the peak of a jump. There are 50 different types of special moves. The goal in the championship mode is to become the number 1 in the national ranking. Next is Golfland for the Game Boy Color, which features a compy room where you can participate in mobile-based competitions with other players. The game also tracks competition results and rankings. Lastly, Game Boy Wars Advance introduces a new Wars Shop mode. In this mode, players earn WP Wars points to purchase new maps and other items. Completing the campaign mode unlocks additional content. The game also includes weather effects that influence unit movement. This page features 3 Game Boy Color games. First is Gaia Master Duel Card Attackers by Capcom, a card battle game similar to a board game, enhanced from the PlayStation version. The gameplay revolves around editing decks and battling, with over 100 different cards to collect. Next is Anima Master GB by Media Factory, a strategy game where players race anima creatures to the finish line. Gameplay involves using chance cards and special moves to hinder opponents. Finally, Metaro 4 Kabuto version, Kuwagata version. By Imagineer, the page highlights new features, including a library function and a partner system, where players can team up with Metarotes. Early production copies include special Metaro cards. The Kabuto version features Saikachis, and the Kuwagata version features do alongside a choice of 3 additional cards for each version. The next page presents Go For It! Mario Support Squad! A corner showcasing fan-submitted artwork. It starts with an apology for the changed magazine name, but assures readers that the corner will continue. This month's topic is illustrations of Pokemon. The artwork includes a piece with Link from Zelda carrying a doll, with Zelda and another character in the background. Quote, a chaotic Pokemon mashup with Pikachu and various Pokemon. Quote, a Smash Bros. Piece with Pikachu, Link, and other characters. Quote, Yoshi at a train station reading a Nintendo Dream magazine. Fox McCloud and Wolf O'Donnell enjoying the cherry blossom season. A girl with a Pokemon theme. Quote, a detailed portrait of Zelda. Quote, a person dressed as a character from Silent Hill GB2. Quote, a girl in a dress with a picture of a game console on it. Quote, Artwork featuring Link, Zelda, and others. Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad huddled together. A Link/Deku Scrub hybrid, surrounded by flowers. The page includes the artist's names and locations, along with short comments about the artwork, such as the Pokemon focus, the use of markers, and the atmosphere in one piece. This page features fan-submitted illustrations centered around various Nintendo games and characters. One piece shows characters from Sin and Punishment. Another is a vibrant tribute to The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages. There's also a Mega Man X illustration, with the artist hoping for an advanced title. The lower half of the page showcases artwork by younger fans, under the title, Illustrations Under 10 Years Old. These include drawings inspired by Mario's story, The Legend of Zelda, and Kirby. Comments express admiration for the children's creativity and attention to detail. Fan letters are also featured, with readers sharing their appreciation for the magazine and specific artists. One letter expresses excitement over being featured in the magazine. Another praises the artistry of a specific artist. There are fan art pieces, including a girl in a green tunic with fairy companions. This page features a collection of fan art submissions themed around the Game Boy Advance. The theme for the next submissions will be robot-related creations. Artwork highlights include a rendition of Princess Peach from Super Mario Advance, and an illustration inspired by Magical Vacation. A piece themed around Castlevania is also included, with the artist noting the dark atmosphere. There are also Sonic-themed art featuring Sonic Advance on a Nintendo device, and a fan art of Link with the phrase, "Please buy it." Artwork by other fans includes a Mario Advance piece with a giant shy guy, and art of a girl holding the Game Boy Advance. A fan of Fire Emblem creates the characters in their art style, and a Mario Advance drawing from a segment titled New Legends. Mario also features in several other fan submissions. The artists express their enthusiasm for the Game Boy Advance, with several mentioning specific games like Rockman, Exe, and Golden Sun. The next page is a collection of 4-panel comic strips, 4 Koma Nagaya, by various artists. One comic references the sticker collecting aspect of the Super Mario series, and someone sticking a sticker to the furniture. Another features Meowth from Pokemon washing its face, suggesting it will rain. There is a Legend of Zelda comic and a Bomberman comic too. Other comics features art of a lot of mini Marios in a Mario World game, a fairy dancing around Link, and a comic strip featuring Kirby. The artists are from different regions of Japan, including Mie Prefecture, Saitama Prefecture, Kanagawa Prefecture, Aichi Prefecture, Kyoto Prefecture, Tokyo, Hyogo Prefecture, Gifu Prefecture, Osaka Prefecture, and Chiba Prefecture. This page features a collection of fan art illustrations, titled Mario Guardian Squad. Illustration Skyscraper Apartment. One person commented that the drawing of Link with chickens is well done. Another illustration poses the question, who would you pair Link with? A. Saria, B. Zelda, circa Tingle. There's mention of purchasing Mario and Zero on release day, and an illustration of the Singer-Nail from The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons Ages. Someone notes that Link is holding a mace, and there is also a drawing of Link and Saria playing the ocarina. A fan laments losing their save data in a game. Another illustration shows Princess Peach eating a peach. The artist jokes that it's cannibalism. There is an illustration for Koban from Mega Man Legends, and an artist shares their desire for a Kirby sequel on the GameCube. Someone mentions waiting for the Stayo Blue Sphere illustration. The comments are from artists all over Japan. One fan recalls the old game, Destiny, and another asks for more details on the Digi-Carrot version. The writer expresses a desire for more information about a tiny alien. The artist is looking for someone to find them. Rockman and Nindori. A person likes a Dragon Quest Budoka. They also like the Kurosawa, Sorata, and Yamamura Ayase. The artist is drawing the scene from the Time Temple. A fan mentions that the first Zero Series game was in the handheld game. The artist shares that he wants to create an action game like Dracula. The next page features a compilation of fan art illustrations. One drawing depicts Link and Kafei from The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, with the artist wondering if they would have been good friends if they'd met outside the game's 3-day cycle. Another illustration shows a determined Momotaro. One fan remembers the old Star Fox 64 level, Sector X with Bill Gray. There's also an illustration of Link from The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. One fan remembers how the Ganondorf monster looks, like a pig boar, and the artist finds it endearing. An artist comments that they are always waiting for Akura. An illustration shows various characters from the Legend of Zelda series. There's art inspired by Mother, the series, and an illustration of Link and Zelda is inspired by The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons Ages, and an artist created an image of Link from The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, wielding the fierce deity mask. Someone comments that the graduation ceremony has arrived, and also that it is spring, with cherry blossoms blooming, and also an illustration of the characters Celes and Yuria. One artist shares a drawing inspired by a new Legend of Zelda game being launched. This page, titled Mario's Guardian Unit, showcases various fan art submissions. The first piece features Princess Peach. Another piece depicts a Pikachu-like Peach. A collaborative piece showcases a group of characters. A piece created with a computer shows Zelda with a character called Nindori. One fan remembers the old Star Fox 64 level Sector X with Bill Gray. There is a drawing inspired by Fushigi no Ki no Mi with a maple character. An artist is inspired by Mother and shares fan art. There's also a drawing inspired by a new Legend of Zelda game being launched. Lastly, there's a section called Those Who Kick, which includes fan art of a character named Nisu. There is also fan art of an Utsugi character. In another piece, a mutation failure is shown. Finally, there is a drawing by Hoyoda-san, showing a creature eating Odin. The page concludes with a list of promotions within a fan group, recognizing contributors at different ranks. The next page is focused on Zero for Game Boy Advance, and refers to the magazine as Hall of Fame: The Dream Technique. It shows how to unlock hidden machines and game modes. Specifically, it details unlocking Dirty Joker and the Stingray. To unlock the hidden championship mode, the player must achieve ranking records on all 15 courses in Pawn, Knight, and Bishop classes. This unlocks the hidden Cynovus and champion circuits to play on. To unlock Dirty Joker, you must clear all 3 series Pawn, Knight, and Bishop in Standard class. The Stingray is unlocked by clearing all 3 series in Expert class. Screenshots of gameplay and the machines are shown, along with character art for Cybershoe and Alex. This page dives into hidden secrets and techniques for 2 games. First, Street Fighter Alpha. It details how to unlock and use M. Bison, Vega in Japan, Akuma, and Dan as playable characters by highlighting certain conditions in the game. The page also lists button inputs and commands. Second, Custom Robo V2. It reveals a hidden battle stage. By pressing the L trigger while the push start screen is displayed, and rapidly moving the 3D stick left and right, players can unlock battle stages like the men's toilet. Lastly, this page has a call for submissions, where readers can submit their own game secrets and techniques to the magazine for a chance to win prizes. Included is an ad for a Dream Technique competition. Prizes are listed for different skill levels: a 10,000 yen toy voucher and a 64 software of your choice, a 5,000 yen toy voucher, a 3,000 yen toy voucher, and a 1,000 yen book voucher. The advert also includes the address to send submissions to via post or fax. This page is titled Goodbye RANNet. It discusses the end of the RANNet service on February 28th. It reminisces about RANNet and the 64DD, noting the initial plans that never materialized and the disappointments that came with it, but also acknowledging the fun it provided. It touches on the game's qualitative transformation and the 64DD, highlighting how RANNet was a members-only service limited to 100,000 people, and how initial access was difficult due to congestion. A set was sent out to people who had applied, though there was a delay of 2 weeks for the RANNet disk. Later on, when accessing the internet became impossible, the service was suspended, and subsequently ended on February 28, 2001. There was also exchanges of image data through the Mario Artist series, and there was a trend of people creating home pages on the internet. Other activities included the Japan Pro Golf Tour 64 event. In February of 2001, members sent in images and comments, which were printed in an album. The number of members was 15,000. A section titled, "This Month, I'm Buying This," recommends 3 games. First is Pokemon Card GB2, noting the high quality and accessible gameplay and increase of cards. Second is JIKU Powerful Pro Yakyu Basic Edition 2001, noting the lack of the success mode but praising the gameplay. The third game, for its relaxing atmosphere, is Animal Crossing. It also features messages from the chairman of the Shopping District Assembly, thanking those who recommended their HP on RanNet. The next page is an article about Super Mario USA, known as Super Mario Bros. 2, internationally, discussing the origin of the game as a modified version of the disk software Yume Kojo, Doki Doki Panic, for the family computer. It highlights the unique gameplay, where players pick up and throw enemies and vegetables. The article explains the story. Mario has a strange dream about the land of Subcon, where the villainous Wart has cast a spell. Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad set out on a picnic and discover a cave that leads them to the world from Mario's dream. The page describes how players can choose between the 4 characters, each with unique abilities. Mario is well-rounded, Luigi has high jump, Toad has great strength, and Princess Peach can float. The goal is to clear all 20 areas in 7 worlds, battling Wart. It also features details about the original Yume Kojo, Doki Doki Panic, including its release date, price, and developer, Fuji TV. The plot involves a boy named Imogen, who, along with his family, must save the twins Piki and Poki from Wart in the Dream Factory. The page includes screenshots of gameplay, including the character selection screen and boss fights. This page is an article from Gathering Bug Academy, focusing on software bugs in games. The page opens with a reader's submission about a bug encountered in Pokemon, where the HP meter appeared in an unusual place during gameplay, and a wild Pokemon appeared. The article then has 3 sections titled, Rarely Seen Bug LV.1, Not Often Seen Bug LV.2, and Quite Problematic, Bug LV.3, which describe different types of bugs and how they affect games. Quote, Level 1 bugs are generally harmless glitches in the message text. Level 2 are where characters can clip through walls in 3D games, requiring a reset. Level 3 bugs can cause game crashes or data loss. The article also advises contacting the manufacturer for bug fixes if possible. The piece emphasizes that bugs are often unavoidable, and that users should appreciate the efforts of game companies. The article concludes with the writer's sentiment that users should enjoy games without worrying too much about minor bugs. Games and characters mentioned include Fire Emblem Gaiden, Pokemon, Chinkle, from Legend of Zelda, Super Mario USA, and mentions characters such as Nabaru and Mazen from Fire Emblem. The next page is a nostalgic look back at the 64DD and LANnet service, with a bittersweet tone as the service is ending. The article talks about the end of the N64 LANnet service on February 28th, and expresses gratitude towards it. There are screenshots from Mario Artist and Talent Studio showing in-game character design, and another from F-Zero X Expansion Kit, showing a user-designed track. SimCity 64 is also mentioned with user-created cities, and a user-designed Bowser is highlighted from the Polygon Studio software. The author reflects on the creative possibilities the 64DD unlocked, and expresses hope for similar software in the future. The piece includes an address for reader correspondence, referencing the GBA section. There's also a cartoon-like image of someone looking at the screen on a 64DD and enjoying its software. This page features a reader-voted ranking of anticipated new games for the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo 64. Super Mario Advance tops the list, followed by Mario Kart Advance, tentative title, and Golden Sun. Other notable games include Animal Crossing for 64, Tactics Ogre Gaiden, and Fire Emblem. The page also features top 10 best-selling Nintendo hardware-compatible games, with Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages for GBC at the top, followed by Pokemon Crystal version. The article mentions the Game Boy Advance launch on March 21st and discusses how games released simultaneously with the GBA launch are excluded from the current ranking. A pickup section highlights Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages. The next page is a reader survey from Nintendo Dream magazine. Readers are asked to select their favorite and least favorite articles from the magazine, as well as magazines they frequently read. There are questions about purchasing the new Game Boy Advance, and what software was purchased with it. Finally, readers are asked to select the upcoming titles they are most interested in. The page also shows a list of winners from the 64 Dream March issue present campaign. This page features the cover of the Nintendo Dream magazine. The cover announces the June issue, set to release on April 21st, featuring a Zero Time Attack contest and a long interview with a famous creator. The editor's note discusses the magazine's new format and encourages readers to share their thoughts. The staff is also excited about Animal Crossing for the N64 and upcoming GBA information. The editor talks about watching Beverly Hills 90210 and feeling old, comparing it to the changes in the industry. He also shares anecdotes about attending the Game Boy Advance presentation and playing Mr. Driller 2 on the GBA. There's mention of a reader worrying about the magazine being discontinued due to the release of GBA, but the editor assures them that it's still around. Finally, it provides contact information for submitting content and inquiries, and teases the next issue of Nintendo Stadium magazine, along with a guide to GBA games and special Pokemon content. A small comic features Mario and Luigi moving together. The staff section lists the team members involved in the magazine's production, including editors, designers, and contributors, such as Hodaka Hamada, Nobuyuki Nakagawa, Shiro Ogari, Takeshi Nakakita, Akira Mashimo, Kei Iwasaki, Yasuyuki Mochida, Sachiko Endo, Shigehisa Nakane, Tomoyuki Ozeki, Takako Mashimo, Yutaka Obuchi, and Takashi Shiraishi. The 64 Dream May issue was released on March 21, 2001, and lists contact information and phone numbers for the publisher, Mainichi Communications. The next page is a full-page advertisement by Nintendo, promoting the simultaneous release of Zero for Game Boy Advance and Napoleon. The Zero is described as a futuristic racing game with intense speed and 4-player battles, and Napoleon is a real-time strategy game where you command troops and shape the future. Both games have a recommended price of 4,800 yen. Also advertised is the Game Boy Advance itself, with a suggested retail price of 9,800 yen. This page is an advert for Mr. Driller 2 for the Game Boy Advance, released on March 21st, retailing for 4,800 yen. The tagline reads, "Who will win this digging action battle?" The text above the characters describes the rivalry between Susumu Hori, the hero, and Anna Huttenmazer, a strong rival, battling to claim the title of Mr. Driller. The advert mentions techniques to escape from spinning, falling, chain reactions, collapses, and suffocation, using their hidden power to reverse the situation and save the world from destroyed blocks. The advert features Sumu and Anna in a dynamic pose, with the "Here we go" catchphrase.